yet, unfortunately, but it will be. It will be published, and we are going to talk. We're going to talk about it today briefly. Of course, as usual, questions welcome. Put them in the chat box, and we will try to address these as soon as we can. Okay, so I see that there are more participants joining, so that's hopefully a good sign. Okay, so in terms of reflective assignments, I'm just looking at the page I wanted to talk about. So first of all, the first assignment is done, so no subsequent assignments are going to be first, or hopefully everything will go smoother. You now know the process, you know how to submit, you know where the cover sheet is, you know how to upload the file and all that. So that should be useful and helpful for the rest of your studies. Of course, you have also submitted already the principles assignment. So now you are in a way on a roll of submitting these assignments. Yeah, Joe.
They've also submitted, those of them who do KEC have submitted that today.
Okay, so that's really the assignments have started, and of course you have already the first piece of feedback. Hopefully the page will work, and today you will see the second reflective piece, and then we will start talking about the final big assignment for pasde first term, the literature review, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the next week's live sessions. Is that right, Joe? We're going to talk about the literature review assignment in the next live sessions. Okay. So what can we say in terms of general feedback on your reflective piece? As Joe mentioned last time, a few students have failed. Now, that sounds, as Joe pointed out, that sounds scary and bad. It's not really that bad. It's just a 10% of 10 credit module of your first year that you haven't put in the bank yet. That's not there. But it's absolutely not the end of the world. And of course, we hope that you will do better and become more comfortable with both academic writing and reflective writing. So hopefully the feedback will be useful, and again, all questions welcome. I just want to underline again about what feedback is. So what we have done is we have uploaded for each of you individual feedback. Now, and we're now providing a general feedback. For different modules, there will be a different combination of general and individual feedback, depending on what the module is and what the assignment is. For multiple choice questions, there couldn't be any individual feedback by definition. So this mix of individual and general feedback will be different for different modules and different assignments, but that's different types of feedback that you will be receiving. And I know that sometimes students are focused too much maybe on individual feedback and they disregard the general one, which I would advise against. And the other way around is bad as well. So please use all of the feedback that we are providing. And it's not so much about backwards looking and thinking, okay, that's what I should have done better in that assignment. It's about being forward looking and thinking, okay, this is what I need to bear in mind for subsequent assignments. And one of the ways to do that is to reread the individual feedback and the notes that you would be making from general feedback today before the next submission, just to keep this feedback fresh in your minds. I hope that everyone has seen their grades and their feedback, but just so we're all on the same page, the way Canvas is marking pass-fail is that pass is equal to complete. So for most of you, you will see complete, but for some of you, you will see incomplete, and that just means that you don't have these 10%. So that's how Canvas just is coded. They don't have pass or fail, they have complete, incomplete. Okay. In terms of where to find the feedback, if you go back to your assignment submission, if you find where you have submitted your assignment, you will find the new second PDF file with our feedback. Now, what happened is that with Joe, we have used a particular marking software which was, by the way, developed in the University of Birmingham, which allows us to mark consistently and to make sure that we're giving consistent comments. And this software generates PDF files that we then upload to Canvas. And you will see that I have uploaded all of the files in one go, so to speak, because that's how the software works. So what you will see is a comment from me with attached a PDF file. And this comment was automatically generated, and the name of the PDF file is the same name as the name of your file. And that's again just because we're marking anonymously. So software downloads we're downloading your submission, putting it in software, it recodes with a combination of numbers and letters, and then we're putting it back to Canvas, and it translates those numbers and letters into your into the file. Well, it then knows which file to attach to which student. So that's where to find your individual feedback for this one. It doesn't mean that everyone or that all module leaders use the same software. We do use different ones. So I think Joe mentioned that Toby and his marking team are going to use Rubric. So depending on, again, the subject, the nature of the assessment, or just the preferences of the marking team, you will see feedback in slightly different forms. What is general is that it's usually best to check your feedback on the browser. There are several instances when feedback is not so visible on a phone. We had that in the past, particularly the annotations, when they're not visible on the phone and so on. So it's best to check feedback in the browser. Okay, so this was a general discussion, and looking at Joe just prompts me to say that all of you should have a comment from me with the PDF, but half was marked by Joe, so you'll see a second comment by Joe saying that he has marked that one. So some of you will have just a comment from me, that's the ones I've marked, and some of you will have a comment from both myself and Joe, and that means that Joe has marked your assessment. So in case you want, I don't know, additional feedback, something's not clear, something's not working, just let us know. Okay, so Joe, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just going to say that your feedback's probably better than mine.
I don't know. We mark to what we can and to the best of our academic judgment. I'm just quickly looking at the chat. There's one question I'm not sure how to interpret. Will the tick state that it's complete and the pass? So if it says complete, it means it's a pass. If it says it's incomplete, it means it's fail of those 10%. Yes, you're supposed to use references, Alice, next time. And we will discuss in the second part about how to use references. And potentially you can submit a brilliant reflective assignment without references. I think quite a few of you were reminded that particularly in academic writing, you should be using references. Now, reflective is slightly different, but even in reflective, you can use referencing, and some of you have already done so. But if you don't mind, Alice, we will come back to that a little bit when we're going to talk about the second one. Okay, so again, there is a question: which section do you complete and complete? It should tell you when you go into grades. It should be, if it's a tick, it means it's a complete. If it's a cross, it's incomplete. If you go to your assignment, it should show you the feedback and state complete, incomplete. Okay, so that's in terms, excellent. That's in terms of sort of general issues. Has everyone found their feedback? The attached PDF file. Because if you haven't found that, please do let us know. Okay, thanks, Ariana. Okay, cool. So it should have worked with double check and several times, triple check. But if something doesn't work, just let us know. Okay, so the way we have provided feedback, it was structured in, I would say, 3 parts. The main part on the reflective piece. Then there was a part on presentation, and there was a part on addressing your feedback, or request for feedback. I'll start with that one. Now, quite a few of you have used fully the template, asking, well, reflecting on previous feedback, asking us for feedback on this and that, and presumably you have done so for CAC and principles and so on. Now, the easiest example that I want to talk about is that a few, maybe not those who are on this call, but a few students who have submitted their assignments have asked me for feedback on things like grammar, punctuation, things like that. So if you have asked me for that, I probably either didn't comment, well, I didn't comment, or I stated something like, I will not comment on that. We're not going to comment on use of punctuation, use of grammar. That's not the level of studies we're at. In a way, the only thing that your module leaders or your markers will comment on in that sense will be something like, your sentences are not fully clear, or you should proofread your assignment. But that's as far as it goes in terms of detail. We're not in a school in that sense. We're focused on content, we're focused on clarity, on coherent structure, but we're not going to comment on punctuation here and there. So it might well be that you forgot a full stop somewhere. That's not the most important part that we would focus on. That's also to encourage you to reflect on what you are asking us in terms of feedback. It should be something most relevant to your assignment and forward-looking as well. For 250 words, we couldn't comment too much on the structure. There was no structure as such to speak of. We could comment on clarity, on flow, but there was no formal structure as such. So again, it depends what the assignment is and what is the appropriate feedback. Okay, well, Joe, fair enough. You had a case, but unless something stands out.
Yeah. So anybody who I marked, regarding the cover sheet, the form, I pretty much put the same comment on everybody's, which was, I wrote something like, because this is only a 250 word assignment, it's difficult for me to comment on the things you put on the form, but I hope my colleagues will address these areas in future feedback, because 250 words is nothing really. So it's really hard for us to comment on all the things that you'd like us to comment on. So that was my sort of cop out, so I didn't have to address everything that was on the form.
It's really depending on what you ask, and it will depend also on the assignment. So if next time you're using, I don't know, diagrams or algebra, then you might want to comment on that. Although, of course, even if you don't ask, the marker will comment on appropriate use of diagrams or algebra, for example. Okay, so that's in terms of the feedback on your feedback. I think people were asking sometimes about writing style. Again, as Joe says, there's not that much in terms of sample writing. I have, when asked, specifically advised to refer to the guidance of the Academic Skills Center, but that's a general recommendation, and everyone has those links in the first couple of weeks of pasde, so you have all that. In terms of presentation, I think quite a few people got just a reminder. Not all feedback is something that you have done badly and we're commenting on that. It's not like that. Feedback is something to take forward. So part of the feedback from me, for example, was on occasion, please remember that your future submissions have to be anonymous. It was absolutely fine to have your name in this one, but don't do it for the future. So it doesn't mean that it was wrong. It just means that I wanted to remind you about something for the future. So please don't think about all feedback as being negative or as highlighting exclusively mistakes. Some of the feedback highlights good practices, and that's how we would encourage you to reflect on feedback, and generally to reflect. you reflect on both positives and negatives. On a few occasions, I have commented maybe the style was too informal, but really that was relatively rare. You should be stating one thing I wanted to say for everyone. You should be stating your current word count. So the maximum was to 50. What you're asked to state is however many words you have used. And fair enough, there could have been a word that got forgotten or that you added afterwards. But broadly, it should be the one that Emma's word tells me that is the feedback. Now, most of you have written somewhere between 230 and 250 words, which is exactly where we would expect you to be. 220, that's fine, depends on the discussion. So those of you who have written under 180 or under 150, that's not really appropriate, that's not really good. There are several reasons for that. The word count gives you an indication as to how much effort you're supposed to put in. Word count is an indication of the level of detail, depth, and description. So if you are at only 2/3 of the word count, only half, then you're probably not fulfilling, quite likely, you're not fulfilling the remit of the assignment. And that's true for this and other assignments to come. So we would encourage you to consider word count as a useful indication rather than just a maximum. So that's, again, something that I would have commented on if the word count wasn't stated or if wrong word count was stated, because there were a few cases. Aside of that, we have commented on presentation, but that wouldn't influence your grade as such. So all of the comments, they're forward-looking for you to take on board for your future assignments. Now, in terms of reflective piece itself, first of all, and I will slightly digress here, I just need to find the page. First of all, it was really nice for us to read about you, and albeit in this sort of virtual way or maybe suboptimal way, to meet you, our students, and to see what you're doing, what your interests are, where you're coming from, and so on. We, for example, haven't quite realized that we have so many students switching degrees. So again, it was nice because we got to know you anonymously in many cases, but still got to know you a bit better. So that was very nice. I saw a lot of reflections saying that they're interested in behavioral economics, for example. Quite a few of you told us that you're interested in, I will badge it under development economics, but it could be about poverty eradication or reducing inequalities within or between the countries, people interested in international trade and all that. So that was really nice to see what you're doing, what you're planning to do. Some career goals were very clear. Some career goals were, I'm not sure yet, which is fair enough. In which case, I hope that you will fully engage with the Careers Network Week that we're planning towards the end of the term. But this gives me the opportunity, sorry, I'll just copy-paste the link. So those of you who are interested in these different areas of economics, and some of you are not just interested in economics, check out, please look at the chat, check out the Festival of Social Science that is put on by our college, and particularly those of you who are interested in experimental and behavioral economics. There is a experiments for social good event that is put on by some colleagues from the department. And then there is another one where a colleague from the department participates in. Is it a crime to be poor? Again, for those of you who are interested in terms of inequality, poverty eradication, you might want to check out those. I'm not saying that you have to, I'm just saying there is a Festival of Social Sciences from your sofa this year. So if you're thinking maybe about engaging with wider perspective, check out. There are a lot of events, so hopefully you'll find something for your taste, and maybe that's a good opportunity to watch something about university or from university with your friends, with your family. You can send the registration link to your family, friends, for example, so that broadens the scope a bit. Okay, so this was a parental list. And I will put the links on the discussion board for everyone to see. Now, in terms of your reflection, some were very interesting, very reflective, very analytical, and it was very nice to read them. They were clear, well written, there was a flow, there was a nice, coherent narrative. So, for example, someone could tell me that they're interested in football. They're interested in football, they're interested in economics of football, and they have read a book about it, and their future career is related to being an analyst for people who are interested in economics of football. There is a lot of betting going on around, and so on. So that presents me with a coherent narrative. This is my interest, this is how I apply to economics, and this is my career goal. That's all coherent, logical narrative, introducing oneself, talking about economics, and being forward-looking. That's a nice story. Now, does it mean that this person doesn't have anything but football in their lives? Maybe, but also maybe not. They might be fans of some kind of music, or they might be fans of films, they might be reading books, they might have other interests, but they chose not to include all of the elements in this narrative because the word count was so limited. It was much better to focus on some specific elements to present a coherent narrative. And you will see this time and time again in your assignments. There are a lot of things that are true. If I introduce myself, I can say I'm French, I have a cat, I'm an economist, and so on. And I like Star Wars. All of those things are true. But if I want to present myself for a job interview, some of these things will be more relevant than others. And I have only this much time, only this much word count to get my point across. So I really need to choose, what is the most relevant part. So for those of you who were talking about what is concise writing, well, that's about making choices in many respects. If you're making good choices, then you have enough space and time, scope, to include analysis and to include critical reflection. Quite a few of you included analysis, but fewer have included critical reflection. So, for example, you're explaining this is my interest, this is what I'm doing with it, and this is why the interest has originated. Okay, that can be part of the analysis. But the critical reflection would be, how did I make this choice? Was it a good choice? What were the drawbacks of the choice? Any choice has drawbacks, pros and cons. Any action has some kind of limitations. So being critical towards yourself would be part of the reflective exercise, being honest and being critical. So quite a few of you have done the analysis part, but the so what, the what now part of reflection, that's something I think to improve on as a sort of general area of improvement. The other thing to say is that being too descriptive is a general drawback, not for this assignment, for this cohort, but that's the usual comment that quite a few of us give for various levels. So be selective and try to write concisely, really evaluating whether you actually need that word or sentence or whether you can do without. So that's probably the most important feedback there. And Joe wants to add. Yeah, go for it.
On the subject of writing in a concise manner, so writing concisely is going to be one of the most important things that you do, because usually words are going to be at a premium, not just in university studies, but also if you go onto jobs, you'll be asked to write reports of a certain length, and so writing in a brief manner is important. I'll give you an example. So quite a lot of people, I think I commented on this for most people, quite a lot of people said in their reflective piece, I am a student at the University of Birmingham, right? And if you've only got 250 words to play with, that's a waste of 6 or 7 words, right? Because we obviously know that you're students at the University of Birmingham. You don't need to say that in the piece. So it's worth just proofreading anything you write and thinking, okay, am I saying things that are superfluous? Am I saying things that are not needed? And sort of cutting down your writing as much as possible. The other thing I wanted to mention while I've got the floor is I don't know whether Camille's already said this, but somebody asked me a question in the chat, so I just want to clarify. All of the feedback was uploaded by Camellia. The ones that were marked by me, I added an extra comment that said feedback from Joe or marked by Joe or something like that. So if you've just got one comment on there, which is Camellia with an attachment of a PDF, she marked it. If you've got 2 comments, the PDF, and then a second comment from me, that means I marked it. So if you're looking to ask one of us for further feedback or clarify any particular points, hopefully that'll help you know which one of us you need to ask. And when it comes to the second reflective one, it's not necessarily going to be the case that the same person or different person marks it. It was all anonymous, so we just had a random half. Well, Camellia did slightly more than half, but it was just a random allocation of who's marking what.
The files were downloaded just as a combination, the title was a combination of letters and numbers, and then it was just split alphabetically, and that was that. But yes, if you have any questions, do contact the relevant marker, especially if something seems unclear, because you will need this for the future. So it's better to clarify now rather than to carry on with a potential misunderstanding of anything. And again, that's a general advice that applies for approximately anything. If you attend a lecture and something wasn't clear, okay, you go and check the textbook, you try again, you check your notes, you try again. But even if after a couple of days and spending several hours every day you haven't cracked this, ask your lecturer. That's what we're here for. What I notice, and I tell that to my undergrads, postgrads, that's just kind of universally true. A student who has contacted me once, they know that they will receive an answer, and they are then more comfortable contacting subsequently me or any other member of staff. I think it's the first one which is the toughest. So try now. Try in your first year asking a question. Your module leader, member of marking team, just a member of staff. Try to ask a question. You'll see it's not as scary as it is, and this confidence that you will build up, you will use it for second years and final years. A number of my tutees keep telling me that it's only in the final year that they realize that lectures are actually useful, or that they're humans. So use us now, and then it will be easier for the rest of your studies. So sorry, that was a slight digression, but I think it was important to underline. So in terms of other general areas of improvement, so I said that it's sometimes too descriptive, if not analytical enough, and so on. Or some of you got a comment about engaging more specifically with reflective models, not specifying one. It doesn't really matter, whichever one you want. And even if you don't, that's okay. But it has to be about you. It's your reflection, your honest, open, critical reflection. A few assignments were describing a book. I think quite a few of you mentioned The Nudge, which is a very nice book, I'm not saying, but there is no point summarizing that book for me, off again. That's not a critical reflection. If you tell us that you read this book and this has transformed your perspective, that's the relevant part, how it has affected you, but not what's written in that book. So several of you have described either a book or an article or some economic theories, and that was not really the relevant part. Now, also on the sort of more serious side, we were expecting you to engage with the economics of the choice, of sort of why you chose economics, why at UOB. Some of you told us about behavioral research that is going on, environmental research that is going on, and that's all perfectly legitimate. Now, if you are telling me that you chose University of Birmingham or UK more generally just because something is beautiful or because I don't know, you like the city, that's partially relevant, but it would be better to tie that to a more general story. So again, here I encourage you to choose your narrative carefully. And yes, if your word count was significantly under the limit, then you would get that comment from me as well. So that's what I wanted to say more or less in terms of the first reflective piece. I'm just looking at my notes whether I have anything to add. It looks like I said about everything I wanted to say. So any questions, if I missed something, or if you have any additional questions that you would like to ask.
Seems to be getting through the session a lot quicker than we did this morning.
It seems so. I think it's just because I'm going through elements in a more organized way.
It's not a problem. I'm wondering if we can do it without a break. We can just go through and finish it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think there are fewer questions maybe than in the previous session.
I've answered a few sort of private questions.
Okay.
So maybe everybody's happy.
Good, excellent. So I can't see any questions, neither private nor general ones that we haven't addressed. So if that's all right with you guys, then let's plow on, and then we save ourselves a break, and then everyone will be freer before past. So let's talk a little about the second reflective assignment. Now, it is not published, and we have discussed this morning. It's not published yet, but it will be available on Canvas. We absolutely promise you it will be there. We'll email to Chase just after the session. So sorry, it's because we have different responsibilities. Someone's uploading the page, someone is providing the question, and sometimes it results in just a little delay, but don't worry, it will be there. So second reflective assignment is similar in the first one in the sense that it's also 250 words, and it's also going to be pass or fail, or on Canvas it will show as complete or incomplete. So in that sense, it's similar. It's reflective, same word limit, and same pass-fail approach. And I think with Joe, we were saying this morning that the pass-fail approach is sort of on a generous side, because if you have passed, then you get the 10%, unless you were late, but that's a separate matter. While, of course, all the other coursework will be marked to a score. Joe, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's just that pass-fail is quite unusual. Apart from the pasde module, there's not going to be any assessments that have this. Also, we keep saying, we say a lot that it's worth 10%, right? But don't forget that's 10% of semester 1 pasde, and pasde is across the whole year. So actually, of the whole module, it's only 5%. So it's even less in those terms. The only people who who sort of pass it but don't get that full 10 are the people who submitted late. And I think we've got a decent chunk of those, haven't we?
Yes, unfortunately, and that's again a learning experience of submitting on time. And we absolutely get it that there could be some last-minute technical difficulties, Wi-Fi doesn't work, computer crashes, life happens. But that's why we're asking you not to leave it to the last minute, because life might happen. So please plan your time. We know from various previous experiences, and I've done very quick data analysis on it for second year and final year modules, the closer the assignment is to the deadline, the less good it is. It's not true for all, of course not, but in the last couple of hours, usually great assessments is not submitted. And it's not because if they're submitted in the last couple of hours that they are less good. It's because those who haven't allocated enough time and planned, and why they're submitting in the last couple of hours, because it's a rush, which means that there might have been insufficient time of thinking about it, writing it, editing it, and the editing process is very important. So I would say that there are 3 stages of writing: plan, and when you write the plan, you sometimes write a second plan or a third plan, and you compare them, and you choose the best one. That's also part of the being concise in a way. How much description do I want to include? And if there is too much, then maybe avoiding that. So there is planning, replanning, then writing the draft, writing, rewriting, rewriting, and so on. Then finalizing the version, and then editing that, because usually something happens and it turns out that part of a paragraph doesn't address the question. So really rereading the text and checking whether it addresses the question, whether the structure is clear, whether it contributes information, whether referencing is done correctly, whether arguments are substantiated. That takes time. So factor that in your planning of writing the assessment. So, for example, for the second reflective piece, we will talk about it now. So maybe you can start thinking about it, at least in general terms now, starting coming up with general ideas, plans, and so on. You have about 10 days to submit it. It's a short one. It's your second one, so hopefully you're more comfortable with it. And then, of course, you will have other things to think about. So not submitting late is important. A, because you lose marks, but B, because it probably indicates that there is something wrong along the way, which allows me to gives me the opportunity to remind everyone that if you are ill, if you're unwell, if something happens that affects you negatively, please do contact our well-being team. From experience, being well-being tutor for a number of years previously, and just in general, we know that some students try to plow on, and even if they're feeling unwell or if something bad happens in their lives that affects their studies, they try to plow on, they try to move forward and thinking, I will be courageous, I will be strong, and I will conquer it, I will not contact the well-being team. Now, in my experience, that's a bad calculation. We see a number of those students who contact us afterwards, after having failed the assignment or dissertation, or submitting it late, or anything else, and they're saying, oh, this was going on in my life. I decided not to contact you, but actually I didn't manage. And then the university, in, I don't know, appeal panel or so on, the university goes back to the student and says, we have asked you to contact the well-being team as quickly as you could possibly. Why you didn't do that? And then the student doesn't have much of a leg to stand. So it's really about asking, not hesitating to ask for help. You are not yet at the stage of the professional life where you don't need to. So you can, it's there, the university is there for you, so please do reach out. And even in the work life, if we're all working as a team, like we were marking with Joe, imagine I'm ill suddenly and I can't complete my marking. Joe would need to mark it all. We would make him happy, but he would need to mark it all because that's the deadline.
But
the sooner I tell him, the better it is, right? Because then he'll have more time. So please do remember, well-being team is there for you. So that was my big digression, but we really know from experience that we have 110 participants on the call. Based on my statistics, 6 of you at least really needed to hear that. So again, apologies for those who have already internalized this, but we will hopefully see the impact later down the line. So what's the second assignment is about? So it's pass, fail, 250 words, PDF file. The question is as follows. We're asking you to reflect on different teaching styles you have encountered, and that's thinking about both lecturers at UOB, different lecturers, and your previous educational experience. School, previous institution, I don't know, foundation courses, anything you've done. So think or reflect on the different teaching styles you have encountered so far. And the question is, how do teaching styles differ at UOB, and how have you to adapt to these different teaching styles? And the real crux of the matter is to discuss the key lessons that you have learned from doing so. So we all have our different teaching styles. More or less similar or more or less different. You have no doubt encountered different teaching styles so far across your UOB lectures. Reflect on that. You have to adapt to these teaching styles, to these differences. You have to maximize your utility, to be efficient in your studies. Of course, we are sadly now teaching you over Zoom, so instead of standing you in front of as Joe was saying, we would normally stand in front of you, the big lecture room, and talk to you with all of the gesticulation and see all of you and see your reactions on the faces and not just the black screens with names. So it's a different teaching style. It's a first for us. We haven't done this before, and we keep saying that's our first pandemic too. Reflect on that. If you choose to, you don't need to, but that's maybe something that you want to reflect on. Yeah, Joe, go on.
Yeah, so I was going to say the question's fundamentally about you reflecting on how teaching and learning is different at university compared to what you used to before, right? So you could do this as a compare and contrast between some teacher that you had previously who was particularly effective and some teacher that you've got now at university, right? And if you do that, don't be shy to mention people by name. It's absolutely fine, right? So, for instance, if you comment on, I don't know, Ralph Bailey or something, you can talk about Ralph because it's, first of all, anonymous. We don't know who you are, and also we're not going to tell him, right? So if you say positive or negative things, we're not going to pass them on particularly. So we want you to be sort of honest and talk about your opinion and your feelings and your reflections on the nature of that. So you can talk about individuals if you want to, or alternatively, you might decide to approach it in terms of the mode of delivery, right? So as Camilla was just saying, this is what we call bimodal delivery. This is obviously very different to what you're used to. Compare, you could talk about how this is more effective for you, and you like the fact that you've got videos to watch, and you like the fact that it's all online and you don't have to get out of bed, and that works well for you as a learner. Or it might be the opposite. You might say, you need the sort of hands-on approach, and so this is not, efficient for you. But we're looking for you to the emphasis on reflection. So it's always going to be about your opinions, your feelings. This is what we're looking for rather than a simple description. We don't want you to go, well, this lecturer did this, and another one did this, and then that's 250 words. And the end of it, it's more about reflecting and giving your opinion and giving your feelings and your ideas, right? But there are different ways that you can approach the question.
It's fairly flexible, but as Joe's saying, it's about your perspective and hopefully how you have adapted. What were the strategies? So how you have coped with these differences. And maybe you haven't. Maybe you hated Zoom, you still hate Zoom, and you don't know how to cope with that in the future. But that is an open and honest reflection. Sometimes there is no answer yet. So that's absolutely fine. It can be about this is what I have done to adapt, or it can be I don't know how to adapt. this is what I tried, didn't work. I tried the other thing, it still didn't work. I mean, then I'm at a loss. That can be part of the conversation, part of your reflection. You thought you hated it. You tried to do something so you hate it a bit less, and it didn't work. That's still reflection. So really about open and honest reflection. That's what we invite. Now, I think in the previous live session, someone asked me whether, or asked us whether references are expected. Again, I can see this from two different perspectives. You can either reference teaching styles, because especially if we're talking about teaching by Zoom and all that, by model, blended, and all of the other words, there is a lot of commentary, blogs, maybe even government advice, or advice from, I don't know, regulatory bodies, Office for Students, and all of those people. So you can reference that. You can say that contrary to the advice, this is what has happened, this is how I feel about it. So you can reference that. Or you can reference reflective models. Again, that's possible. Or maybe not at all, and you're writing a really personal, in-depth reflection. The possibilities are open, but so again, it's not about ticking different boxes. It's about providing us with your reflection and showing that you have thought about it in analytical and critical way. So yes, sorry, Joe, you have answered the question in the chat. And yeah, teaching, yeah, you can be technical or not at all. I don't have any particular expectations in this regard. Any other questions? Other than that, the process of submission and the rest will be the same. Yes, it's a pass-fail again. Yep.
So, based on what we've said, and based on the sort of main criteria of people not passing the first one, the best way to ensure a pass is to just make sure that you're reflective, you're talking about feelings, experiences, etc. Right? This is how to ensure the pass, if you like.
And yes, Joe said it's okay to mention the lecturer's name. You can refer to, Ralph Bailey, Camilla, Joe, absolutely. Very welcome to refer to the name. A word of caveat, like warning, don't be insulting, don't be personal, but I trust students of University of Birmingham to make good ethical judgments there.
I was going to say that, so don't say anything that's not about teaching. Obviously, keep it to teaching stuff. And also, if you say that if you decide to write about me or Camellia, and you say that our style isn't suited to you and it doesn't quite work for whatever reason, that is not a reason for us to fail you. We're not allowed to fail you because you say that our style doesn't suit you. So feel free to say that. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's anonymous. You remember it's anonymous, so there is absolutely no danger of any kind. The assessment will be published as soon as we can possibly arrange it, normally today. Again, I apologize for the delay. It should have been published like a couple of hours ago. We'll sort it out. It should be published today, don't worry.
The reason for not giving you the question before now, because usually an assessment you'd have multiple weeks to write it, whereas here you've got 9 or 10 days, right? It's due the 12th of November. But the reason for that is we didn't want you to start on this one until you've read the feedback from the first one. So you only got the feedback from the first one on Friday, right? So it would have been pointless for you to start on this one until you've got the feedback from that first one, basically.
And you had anyway principles on CAC to think about for those of you who are doing CAC. So we're trying to stagger these assessments as much as possible. So the due date is the 12th. And the models of reflection can be useful, but it's not mandatory. It's really not mandatory. It's just about you thinking either with the help of reflective models or not. And even if you don't use these reflective models for your assignment, I'm just encouraging you to use them for your own development and perspective. And I can I think we still have that professional development module in the final year, and
Well,
no,
we
well,
do have it. I'm trying to get rid of it, but we do have it.
at least so far we have it, and there is a reflective part in there. And what I can say is that when you get a job, there is in approximately any job a review process. We have PDRs or professional development reviews. In approximately any other job, there is some kind of a review process. Goal setting and how has the previous year, 6 months, month, week, whatever, how have they been? That's part of the reflection process. So whichever way you want to turn it, it's still useful. Sorry, the CAC that we were referring to is the contemporary economic challenges. We know that not all students are doing that, but I would say majority are. So that's what we were referring to as CAC. Sorry, that's our abbreviations, our standard abbreviations in the department. Okay, have we addressed everything?
I think so.
I think so.
I've answered some questions, private questions in the chat.
Okay.
A couple of questions. So I've not completely read all the guidance about that Mr. Johnson has released on behalf of the United Kingdom and what's happening at the moment. But a few people, colleagues and students, are asking about going home. You know, if you're international, going home and stuff. So I don't know what the rules are about travelling. I've not read them exactly. But of course, we've said to people from the beginning of the semester that that you can study online. So there's no problem from the university's perspective if you want to leave the UK at this point, as far as I'm aware. So that's absolutely fine. The only thing that I would suggest is remember to check, you know, the government travel restrictions. So somebody's just asked, are in-person seminars going to continue? As far as we know, they're going to continue because education, schools, colleges and universities are exempt from the lockdown which is coming in. So as far as we know, face-to-face seminars are going to continue unless the university makes a unilateral decision to get rid of them. But we've not heard anything about that yet.
No.
Do you know?
They've put an announcement on Facebook and Twitter. I checked a couple of hours ago that there will be some kind of announcement, but that's as far as it goes.
What's the point in making an announcement that there will be an announcement? Jesus Christ. Sorry. So Georgina's asked, will the library close? Do you know anything about the library community?
No, I think that will be part of the announcements that is announced. Pardon me. We don't know. We really don't know. What we can try to do is to provide you with readings that are accessible online and offline. That's as much as we can achieve, and I think we're all trying to have at least one textbook that is available online where textbooks are applicable. That's kind of as far as we go.
Question in the chat, Cornelia. I don't really understand the structure around the in-person seminars.
Good question. What depends what you mean. So we have a seminar. We have a small group seminar every other week, and the idea in normal circumstances, or at least pre-pandemic circumstances, would be that this is a good opportunity for students to discuss things together. Now, because of the COVID regulations and masks and all that, discussing together and working in groups is impossible. And that's why the face-to-face seminars, they may seem slightly less useful than otherwise. But and I think Thomas is organizing breakout groups for the online, but online we can do it. For face-to-face we can't. The idea is to have a much more interactive session with fewer people in the room that relatively to what we have now. Although hopefully we're sufficiently, or at least relatively interactive. So yeah, that's the structure. We have the live sessions like this one every week, and the seminars, small group seminars, every other week. And these seminars, they're either taking place face-to-face or online. That's the best answer I can give.
Week 7 seminars are going to be done by us, aren't they?
Yes.
So Cornelia and I are going to do the week 7 seminars.
Yeah.
Ourselves. So those should be good.
Hopefully. There is a question, Joe, with your authority of the program director. How likely do we think that January exams will not take place in person?
They're not going to take place in person, they're going to be online.
Yeah. Because we are not an accredited anything, we don't need a lab, so online will work for us.
We'll give more information about that in the coming weeks. It's nothing to worry about just yet.
And there is no pasde exam, which is...
There's no pasde exam. So actually in January, you're just talking about principles exam and maths exam, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know for languages and so on, but presumably they'll be online as well.
I should know more about the languages, but I don't know much at all.
I don't know whether they have decided themselves, but yeah, we know that there are joint honours students who might have jurisdiction of 2 departments. For economics, it's going to be online, principles online, maths online. More details forthcoming as soon as we figure it out, and hopefully the guidance doesn't change again. Sorry. Have we answered your structure questions?
I think so. I've spoken to one student who asked about the structure in private chat, and I think we answered. Yeah, there you go. We answered
cool.
it as well.
Thank you. The literature review we're going to talk about next week. The literature review, sorry, I was just looking at my private chat questions. So the literature review assignment we're going to discuss in the live sessions next week.
And very possibly that will be the subject of our seminars as well, will it not?
That would make sense. So we start talking about possible topics and so on. Yeah. So next week we will start working, you will start working on the literature review. Yeah. So this week is dedicated to the second reflective. From next week onwards, literature review. Okay.
I've got a private question. It says, will there be any videos to cover for this week whilst we are working on the reflective piece? So in answer to that question, I'm at the moment scripting some videos that I'm going to do on practical everyday use of economics. These are, I'm doing these for your interest really, so I'm doing them to show that economics can be applied to real world problems. They're not directly linked to the reflective piece, they're nothing to do with the reflective piece, but they're sort of for your general interest. And they could be interesting and useful for the literature review to give you some ideas and inspiration. But yeah, there will be some videos to watch this week. We're probably gonna upload them a little bit later than they normally go up. Maybe Thursday morning, something like that.
Yeah, as you're saying, they're not linked to the reflective piece too, so that will not affect you. And as much as Joe will talk, will do his, the week is his, so the topic is practical, or economics in practice, and I will do my view on it and talk about more creative side, and economics not in practice, something completely opposite. So again, just to give you different ideas for your literature review searches and for your own interest.
I'm doing videos on how often should you go to the gym and the economics of chocolate. That's two of them for sure. I'm thinking about doing one which is about should you drive or should you catch public transport. These are the sort of topics that are going to be in my videos. Hopefully they're going to be interesting applications of things that you've talked about in principles and elsewhere to everyday sort of problems and ideas.
There is no way you're going to convince me to go to the gym, Joe. That's just not going to happen. But I'm looking forward to the video.
I'm going to convince some people to go to the gym.
Of course. Any other questions, guys?
No.
Okay, I think we're done. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, and I'll see you next